You're not tired. You're undisciplined. You're not unlucky. You're unprepared. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're a victim of your choices. And right now, as you're watching this, you're probably making excuses about why that's not true. Stop. Look at yourself. Really look. The person staring back at you is either your greatest asset or your biggest liability. There's someone your age, with your background, with your opportunities, who's crushing it right now. While you're here looking for motivation, they're not more talented. They're not luckier. They're not more connected. They just decided to join the 1%. The 1% who get up when they don't want to. The 1% who do what they hate to get what they love. The 1% who understand that comfort is the enemy of greatness. You want to know why you're not where you want to be? Because you're comfortable being uncomfortable with mediocrity. You've made peace with good enough. You've negotiated with your potential. You've settled for a life that doesn't scare you. But here's what nobody tells you about the 1%. They're not superhuman. They're not genetically different. They're not born with some magical discipline gene. They just decided to stop lying to themselves. And that decision changes everything. Because the moment you stop accepting your excuses, the moment you stop negotiating with your potential, the moment you stop being comfortable with being average, that's the moment you join the 1%. But first, you need to understand something painful, something most people will never admit. You're running out of time. While you're waiting for Monday, for next month, for next year, life is happening. Your dreams are dying. Your potential is rotting. Your future self is looking back at you right now, begging you to start. But you're not listening. You're too busy being busy. Too busy scrolling. Too busy complaining. Too busy waiting for the perfect moment. You know what's really painful? You're living someone else's life, following someone else's path, accepting someone else's definition of success. You've become a passenger in your own existence. And the worst part? You know it. You feel it every morning when you wake up. That sinking feeling in your stomach. That voice that whispers, this isn't it. You're not depressed. You're unfulfilled. You're not anxious. You're living below your potential. You're not lost. You're just following the wrong map. And society loves it. Society wants you average. Society wants you comfortable. Society wants you to fit in, shut up, and consume. Because when you're average, you're predictable. When you're comfortable, you're controllable. When you're mediocre, you're not a threat. But here's what society doesn't tell you. Average is broken. Average is 64% of people living paycheck to paycheck. Average is 70% of people hating their jobs. Average is dying with regrets instead of scars. You're not average by accident. You're average by choice. Every snooze button hit is a choice. Every shortcut taken is a choice. Every I'll start tomorrow is a choice. And those choices, they compound. One missed workout becomes a year of being out of shape. One avoided conversation becomes a lifetime of regret. One I'll do it later becomes a graveyard of dreams. But you know what else compounds? The right choices. The hard choices. The 1% choices. The person who chooses discipline over comfort. The person who chooses growth over safety. The person who chooses action over analysis. They don't just win, they dominate. And the gap between them and everyone else? It's not closing, it's widening. Every day you wait, they get further ahead. Every day you make excuses, they make progress. Every day you choose comfort, they choose growth. So here's the painful truth you need to hear. The 1% aren't superhuman. They're super disciplined. They wake up at 5 a.m. not because they love mornings. They wake up because they love winning. They work out when they don't want to. They eat clean when they crave junk. They save money when they want to spend. They read books when they want to watch Netflix. But here's what they know that you don't. Discipline isn't punishment. It's freedom. Every rep you don't want to do frees you from weakness. Every dollar you save frees you from financial stress. Every skill you build frees you from dependence. Every boundary you set frees you from manipulation. The 1% understand that temporary pain creates permanent power. They know that what you do when you don't want to do it. That's what separates winners from everyone else. When you don't want to get up, they get up. When you don't want to study, they study. When you don't want to practice, they practice. When you don't want to save, they save. And compound interest doesn't just work with money. It works with everything. Compound discipline. compound learning, compound relationships, compound health. The 1% know this, so they invest in themselves when others invest in entertainment. They build when others buy. They create when others consume. They understand that you can't cheat the process, but you can trust the process. Every successful person you admire went through the same thing. The doubt, the fear, the resistance. The voice saying, this is too hard. The voice saying, you're not cut out for this. But they kept going. Not because they felt like it, but because they committed to it. The 1% understand that feelings are temporary, but systems are permanent. They build systems that work even when they don't feel like it. Morning routines that happen even when they're tired. Workout schedules that happen even when they're busy. Learning habits that happen even when they're stressed. Because motivation is like a sugar rush. It feels great, but it doesn't last. Systems are like compound interest. They feel boring, but they build empires. The 1% know that extraordinary results come from ordinary actions, done consistently over time. They don't look for shortcuts. They look for systems. They don't look for hacks. They look for habits. And here's what happens when you live like the 1%. Your body changes. Your bank account changes. Your relationships change. Your confidence changes. Your entire life changes. But most importantly, your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You start seeing yourself as someone who does. And that shift in identity? That's when everything becomes possible. Who are you? Not who you tell people you are. Not who you pretend to be on social media. Not who you wish you were. Who are you actually? Are you someone who follows through? Or someone who starts strong and fades? Are you someone who does what they say? Or someone who makes excuses? Because here's the truth. Your identity isn't what you think about yourself. Your identity is what you do when you don't want to do it. The 1% know this. They don't wait to feel like the person they want to become. They act like the person they want to become. Every day, every choice, every moment. They don't say, I'm trying to be more disciplined. They say, I am disciplined. They don't say, I'm trying to get in shape. They say, I am someone who works out. Because when your identity changes, your behavior changes. When your behavior changes, your results change. When your results change, your life changes. But here's what most people get wrong. They try to change their results first. They want the six-pack before they become someone who works out. They want the money before they become someone who saves. They want the success before they become someone who executes. It doesn't work that way. You have to become the person first. The 1% understand this. They don't focus on the outcome. They focus on the identity. They ask better questions. Not, how do I lose weight? But what would a healthy person do? Not, how do I make money? But what would a wealthy person do? Not, how do I get motivated? But what would a disciplined person do? And when you start asking better questions, you start becoming a better person. But this requires something most people won't give. Honesty. Brutal, uncomfortable, ego-crushing honesty. You have to look at yourself and admit, I am not who I say I am. I am not who I want to be. I am not living up to my potential. That's painful. That's why most people avoid it. That's why most people stay average. But the 1% embrace this pain. They use it as fuel. They use it as a blueprint. They don't run from their weaknesses. They run toward them. They don't hide from their failures. They learn from them. They understand that you can't fix what you won't face. You can't change what you won't acknowledge. You can't become who you won't admit you're not. So I'm going to ask you again. Who are you? Are you someone who quits when it gets hard? Or someone who gets harder when it gets hard? Are you someone who makes excuses? Or someone who makes progress? Are you someone who talks about change? Or someone who creates change? Are you someone who wishes for a better life? Or someone who builds a better life? Because the 1% knows something you might not. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. So if you want 1% results, you need to become a 1% person. Starting right now. Starting with the next choice you make. Starting with who you decide to be. The 1% is not a destination. It's a decision. A decision you make every single day, every single hour, every single moment. When your alarm goes off, you decide. When you're tired, you decide. When you're scared, you decide. When you're comfortable, you decide. The 1% don't wait for permission. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for tomorrow. They decide, and then they act. Because here's what I know about you. You wouldn't be watching this if you were satisfied. You wouldn't be here if you were fulfilled. You wouldn't be listening if you weren't ready. So stop waiting. Stop planning. Stop researching. Stop analyzing. Start doing. Start becoming. Start being. The world doesn't need another dreamer. The world needs another doer. The world needs another person who refuses to settle. The world needs another person who joins the 1%. And that person is you. But only if you decide. Only if you act. Only if you stop being comfortable with being average. The 1% are waiting for you. They're waiting for you to stop making excuses. They're waiting for you to start making moves. They're waiting for you to join them. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, live like the 1%. Wake up like the 1%. Work like the 1%. Think like the 1%. Act like the 1%. Don't tell anyone. Don't post about it. Don't make announcements. Just do it. And watch what happens. Watch how you change. Watch how your life changes. Watch how everything changes. Because the 1% know something the 99% don't. You're not stuck. You're not limited. You're not defined by your past. You're not a victim of your circumstances. You're capable of more than you know. You're stronger than you think. You're closer than you believe. The only question is, are you going to prove it to yourself? Or are you going to keep wondering, what if?